in the beginning of the chapter 2, Arjun speaks about some more doubts, and then he also surrenders to Krishna, and that gives the chance for Krishna to speak the Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna speaks text 11 to 30, giving Arjuna the basic jnana, mainly about the soul and the body. Then 31 to 38, Karma Kanda section. Then 39 to 53, Buddhi Yoga section. And then current session we are on now, 54 to 72, the last section, covers the symptoms of a self-realized person. Arjuna is going to ask about what are the symptoms of such a person, and Krishna will explain in a detailed way. So today's verse is 260. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 2, Text 60. Yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschitaha indriyani pramathini haranti prasabham manaha. The senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. Go to the purport. There's two parts, 2 pages of the purport. So we'll start with, let's see who I can find here. Nitai Mataji, maybe you can read this first page. You can unmute yourself.
Thank you, Prabhu. Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada. There are many learned sages, philosophers, and transcendentalists who try to conquer the senses, but in spite of their endeavors, even the greatest of them sometimes fall victim to material sense enjoyment due to the agitated mind. Even Vishwamitra, a great sage and perfect yogi, was misled by Menaka into sex enjoyment, although the yogi was enduring for sense control with severe types of penance and yoga practice. And of course, there are so many similar instances in the history of the world. Therefore, it is very difficult to control the mind and senses without being fully Krishna conscious. Without engaging the mind in Krishna, one cannot see such material engagements. A practical example is given by Sri Yamunacharya, a great saint and devotee, who says, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And the next one starts with a big Sanskrit verse. So let's give it a chance. Let me ask Ajay Mukund Prabhu if you can read that, please, the second page. Are you there, Ajay Mukund Prabhu? Okay, maybe not there. So, okay, next one, yes, I can see Alkaben. Alkaben, perhaps you can read. Alka Mataji. Okay, third time lucky, maybe. Gerta Mataji, perhaps you can read this.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Yadatvati ma chaitaha Krishna padaravinde nava rasa dhamani ujyatam rantum asit tadavati bhakta nari sangame smaryamane bhavati mukha vikaraha sushtu nishtivanam cha. Since my mind has been engaged in the service of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, I have been enjoying an ever new transcendental humor Whenever I think of sex life with a woman, my face at once turns from it and I spit at the thought. Krishna consciousness is such a transcendently nice thing that automatically material enjoyment becomes distasteful. It is as if a hungry man had satisfied his hunger by a sufficient quantity of nutritious eatables. Maharaja Ambarisha also conquered a great yogi, Durvasa Muni, simply because his mind was engaged in Krishna consciousness. Savai Manaha Krishna Padaravindayo Vachamsi Vaikuntha Guna Nuvarname Nane. Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hey, thank you so much. Thank you, Gautama Mataji. You negotiated the Sanskrit verses quite well. Thank you. So, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Ajnanati Mirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Charu Swami Niti Namine Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pashakadeshatar Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shivasati Kaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Okay, so as usual, we'll just dive into the purport and pick out the main points. So Prabhupada says in the beginning, there are many learned sages, philosophers, and transcendentalists who try to conquer the senses, but in spite of their endeavors, even the greatest of them sometimes fall victim to material sense enjoyment due to the agitated mind. For example, Vishwamitra. So he gives the example of Vishwamitra. We'll just quickly go through the story. I think everybody's aware of the story of Vishwamitra. But for those who may not be aware, we'll just quickly summarize the story. So Vishwamitra actually was a king. Before he became a yogi, he was actually a very powerful king. One time the king, Vishwamitra, was out hunting with his entourage, and in the middle of the forest, they became very thirsty, very hungry. And they came upon the ashram of Vashishta Muni. So here's the picture of Vishwamitra arriving at the ashram of Vashishta Muni, very simple ashram. And he said, look, we are hungry. And in this picture, of course, you can only see Vashishta Muni, only Vashishta and Vishwamitra, but it is said in the pastime that there were many, many companions with the king. A king normally would not travel alone. You usually will be a whole party with him. So Vashishta Muni says, okay, go and have a bath in a nearby river and then come back and I'll have some prasad ready for you. So Vishwamitra Muni thinks, okay, he's a simple sadhu here. Maybe he'll pick up some fruits and some leaves or whatever, and at least whatever it is, we'll have something to eat. So they all take a bath, and when they come back, there is a huge feast, a massive feast prepared. And there's all sorts of varieties of food and drink. Not just that, everything is served in golden plates and golden goblets bedecked with jewels. So he was stunned. So basically they all sort of ate to their satisfaction. And then he asked, how did you manage to do this, such an opulent prasadam? Even in my palace, I don't have this. So Vashishta Muni said, I have a cow, Nandini, who's a Kamadhenu, who's a Surabhi cow. So that cow can fulfill all my desires. So when you went for your bath, I desired that I would have really nice opulent prashadam for all of you, and this is what was produced. So then he becomes very greedy. The king says, well, you are just a simple sadhu. You don't need this cow. I can make a lot of use of this cow. So please let me have this cow. So Vasishtha Muni says, no, this cow is like my daughter. How can I let you take her away? And then, of course, the king, Vishwamitra, as you know, the Kshatriyas are very much in a mode of passion. He threatened Vasishtha Muni and said, you better give her to me or else. Vasishtha Muni says, look, I am a simple Brahmana. I don't have the strength to fight you and your men. And then forcibly, Vishwamitra was dragging the cow away. So the cow looks at Vasishtha and said, I am your daughter. How can you let this happen to me? So Vasishtha says, he repeats, he says, I am a simple Brahmana. I can't fight the king. But if you wish to, you can do what you like. That's all. Nandini was waiting for that instruction. And out of nowhere, Nandini created a huge army. And that army defeated Vishwamitra. And they fled. So after that incident, Vishwamitra made up his mind that, being a Kshatriya is no point. I want to also be a Brahmana. I want to be a powerful Muni. So I can also have that kind of power and maybe do that. So he actually went, he went to the forest and sat in meditation for many, many years. Some figures said 60,000 years, 10,000 years, we don't know. But anyway, a lot of years. And he was becoming so powerful that Indra felt threatened. Indra thought that if this Muni becomes so powerful, he may threaten my post. So Indra sends an Apsara called Menaka. Menaka was a very, very pretty damsel from the heavenly planets. And she sent specifically to disturb Vishwamitra Muni so that his meditation became broken and he doesn't achieve the powers he's trying to get. So just by, you can imagine this, Vasishtha Muni was in Samadhi for so many years. But just the sound of this ankle bell, as Menaka was dancing in front of him, just the sound of her ankle bells disturbed his Samadhi. And he woke up. And the beauty of Menaka completely engrossed it. And then, of course, they united. And as a result, they had a child. And the child's name was, anybody know the name?
Shakuntala.
Exactly, Shupra Mataji, Sakuntala. Baby Sakuntala was born. Just as that happened, Vishwamitra Muni came to his senses. He realized, oh my God, I was making such wonderful progress in my sadhana. And now suddenly, I have now been trapped into this material life. Now I've got a child I've got to look after. He actually then decides to go back to his life and says, there you go, in that picture, he's rejecting. He says, you do what you like with the baby. I'm going back to my life. And he went away. Menaka, it was time for Menaka now to go back. She only came for that mission. So she had to go back to the heavenly planets. So what to do with the baby? So she just leaves the baby under a tree and goes back to the heavenly planets. So the baby is there under a tree. Some birds came and surrounded the baby, just protecting her from any wild beasts. In the meantime, Rishi Kanwa happens to pass by, and he sees the baby surrounded by this bird. These birds actually, the name Sakuntala came because these birds, these are special kind of birds. They're called Sakuntala birds. So Rishi Kanwa took over the custody of the child and named her Shakuntala. And later on, this child grows up into a very, very beautiful lady. King Dushyanta gets attracted by her. A long, long story. And then she becomes the mother of Bharata, who is the forefather of the Pandavas. So that is the story of Vishwamitra. So the point here being that even somebody who is so staunch in his sadhana, the senses are so powerful that if one is careless, one can fall down very, very quickly. That's the main message of this particular verse. Another example that's not in the verse, in the purport, but another example I thought of was about Saubhari Muni. Saubhari Muni was again a very, very powerful Muni. He has developed a siddhi, kind of siddhi, where he can actually sit in the Yamuna, underwater in the Yamuna, and meditate. And like this, similar to Vishwamitra, Saubhari Muni was meditating for many years. He was not an ordinary Muni. Saubhari Muni actually is mentioned also in the Vedas. His name comes in the Rig Veda. There's also some mantras called Saubhari Sutra. There's also a particular scripture called Saubhari Samhita. So, very powerful sage. But can you believe it? With Vishwamitra, he saw Menaka. But in this case, in the case of Saubhari Muni, what happened? How did he get distracted? Anybody?
By looking at the fish, Prabhuji.
Yes. He was distracted. He saw two fish be in copulation, and just by that sight, his mind got agitated, and he left the water. He came out, and he then started to look around how to satisfy his desire now, which is the reason within him. He completely abandoned his spiritual practice. So at that time, the king of Ayodhya was a king named
Mandhata.
Madhata.
Yeah.
And King Madhata had 50 beautiful daughters. So this Saubhari Muni goes to Madhata Maharaj and says, please let me marry one of your daughters. Now imagine this Saubhari Muni is an old saint, disheveled. He's been there underwater for a long time. But not to upset him, the king says, okay, I will tomorrow, I wait here, I'll get the girls, and whoever chooses you can marry. He was quite sure that none of his daughters would choose him. Who's going to choose this old man as the husband? But somebody was very smart. He says, no, not now. I'll come back tomorrow, and then you can call your daughters. So with his mystic powers, the next day, Saubhari Muni appears as a handsome young man. And when the 50 daughters come along, all of them were competing to say, I want to marry him, I want to marry him. And this way, he got married.
Just a minute, I just want to turn off this program.
Hare Krishna. Okay. So, yeah, he got married to all 50 of them. He had many children and grandchildren, like that. So he completely fell down from his samadhi. And then this story, by the way, this story is in the 9th canto of the Bhagavatam in chapter 6. And then there's some 2 or 3 texts that we can actually read the translation of, where he certainly comes back. So first of all, he talks about his life at that time. So he says, in this way, Saubhari Muni enjoyed sense gratification in the material world, but he was not at all satisfied, just as the fire never ceases blazing if constantly supplied with drops of fat. So you see, our senses, no matter how much we try to satisfy them, they never get satisfied. So it's completely pointless to try and satisfy them. He then thinks, thereafter, one day, while Saubhari Muni, who was expert in chanting mantras, was sitting in a secluded place, he thought to himself about the cause of his fall down, which was simply that he had associated himself with sexual affairs of the fish. Alas, he's thinking, why is practicing austerity even within the depths of the water, while observing all the rules and regulations practiced by saintly persons, I lost the result of my long austerities simply by association with the sexual affairs of fish. Everyone should observe this, fall down, and learn from it. So this is a lesson again, lesson from us. Just like these 2 examples show, that we have to constantly, as devotees, we have to constantly control our senses and then be vigilant all the time. whenever, if we do come into a situation where we feel that our senses are going to be agitated, we need to instantly remove ourselves from that situation. Otherwise, we're in danger. The purport continues, therefore, it is very difficult to control the mind and senses without being fully Krishna conscious. Without engaging the mind in Krishna, one cannot seize such material engagements. So you see, the senses are like wild horses. They are reckless, and that's why to discipline them is important. It's a battle that we all have to fight continuously. You cannot rest and say, okay, now I'm more or less, controlled, so I can relax. No, there's no. Constantly, we have to be vigilant. And in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna speaks about this, about the difficulty of controlling the mind and senses, of mind rather in this case. Anybody know this verse? (634). Chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramati balavadridam tasyaham nigraham manye vayor eva sudhuskaram. Arjuna is saying the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna. And to subdue it, I think, is more difficult than trying to control the wind. So you see, the mind, the hierarchy, in the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita, there's a verse, text 42, where Krishna explains the hierarchy of these things. So he says, Indriyani parayahur, Indriyebhya paramana, manas tastutu parabuddhi, yo buddhi paratastuta. So he says, the working senses are stronger, are superior rather to dull matter. But the mind is higher than the senses. The intelligence is still higher than the mind, but he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. So we have to now understand from that verse that we are actually in control. We should not let the senses control us. We are in control. So we have to then use the intelligence to control the senses, not the other way around. Most of the time in this world, this is what's happening. It's the other way around. Prabhupada expands on that point in the purport, but we're running out of time, so we'll skip that. You can go and have a look at, this is actually the purport of 634, not 342, 634 purport. You can have a look at that in your spare time. Then Prabhupada in the end quotes about Maharaj Ambrish, who conquered a great yogi, Durvasa Muni, simply because his mind was engaged in Krishna consciousness. So this again is in the 9th canto, 4th chapter. And again, a quick recitation of the Ambarish pastime. Durvasa Muni, he's very famous, as we all know, for his short temper. He arrives at Ambarish Muni's place and says, I'm here with 60,000 of my followers and we want prasadam. So he says, okay, we'll make arrangements. You go and take a bath. As it happened, there was the end of a long vrata that Ambarish Muni was performing. And that day he had to break it. And there was a particular muhurat within which he had to break the vrat. If he didn't break it, then the whole austerity that he had performed for the 1-year-old vrat would not bear result. So he was in quandary because the Durvasa Muni and the sadhus were not returning in time. And then he took advice from the brahmanas around him. And they said that, okay, because you need to break it somehow, so just take some water. Because by taking water, you're not taking anna. So you are, in one sense, you're not breaking, but at least you're taking the water. So for the formality, you have broken it. So take some water. So he did that. But when Durvasa Muni came back, he found out and he got very angry. How can a yajman have his whatever he takes without the atithi? And he got so angry and he took out a piece, one hair from his head and threw it down and created this fearful demoness to try and devour Amrish Maharaj. Now, Amrish Maharaj was a pure devotee of the Lord. This is how he spent his time. These are the Sanskrit verses. Again, we will not recite them because of time. We'll just go to the English. Amrish Maharaj always engaged his mind meditating upon the lotus feet of Krishna. His words in describing the glories of the Lord, his hands in cleansing the Lord's temple, and his ears in hearing the words spoken by Krishna or about Krishna. He engaged his eyes in seeing the deity of Krishna, Krishna's temples and Krishna's places like Mathura and Vrindavan. He engaged his senses, a sense of touch, in touching the bodies of the Lord's devotees. He engaged his sense of smell in smelling the fragrance of tulasi offered to the Lord. And he engaged his tongue in tasting the Lord's prasadam. He engaged his legs in walking to the holy places and temples of the Lord. His head in bowing down before the Lord. And all his desires in serving the Lord 24 hours a day. Indeed, Maharaj Ambrish never desired anything for his own sense gratification. He engaged all his senses in devotional service, in various engagements relating to the Lord. This is the way to increase attachment to the Lord and be completely free from material desires. So there you go. Formula is be engaged in Krishna consciousness. Once we have all our senses engaged in Krishna consciousness in bhakti, then there's less chance of our minds being diverted. So the story goes that Sudarshan Chakra, Vishnu's Sudarshan Chakra came to defend Maharaj Ambrish and chased the Rashamuni all over the place. Anyway, everybody knows the story, so we won't go into it. But that is just lessons for us that there is no other way. By us artificially trying to control our senses, it will work for a very short time. But long-term solution is to engage our senses. Yesterday, Divyanand Prabhu went to that verse saying about higher taste. What's the verse for the last line? Param Dishva Nivartati. So higher taste. So by having a higher taste of Krishna consciousness, we can then let go of the lower taste of sense enjoyment. And Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami explains about controlling our senses, engaging our senses in the worship of the Lord. Sarvopadi vinirmuktam tatparatmena nirvalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhakti ruchite. Bhakti or devotional service means engaging all our senses in the service of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the master of the senses. When the spirit soul renders service unto the Supreme, there are two side effects. One is freed from all material designations, and one's senses are purified simply by being employed in the service of the Lord. So, devotees, the lesson from today's verse is that we need to be vigilant, and the only way, no other way to control our senses is to employ our senses, engage our senses constantly in the service of the Lord. And this way we will be saved from the disaster of falling down into a sinful life. So not more we can say. It's a very, very powerful subject, and a lot more we can say about this, but time is running out, so we will stop here, and I will invite any questions. Hare Krishna. Anybody, any thoughts, any questions, any realizations, any additions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Hema Mataji.
Thank you for a wonderful class. Prabhuji, my question was, would someone fall down only if they've got lingering desires from this life or previous life, or it could happen in any case?
So yes, very nice question actually, Hema Mataji. I was reading I forget, it wasn't this particular section, but I was reading something else just yesterday on the Bhagavatam. where it was explained that sometimes one may be very, very vigilant about this life and controlling the life and everything. But sometimes, because of the impressions of our previous life, some thoughts may start coming to our mind. And even those thoughts, if you're not careful, if you let those thoughts develop further, then that could also lead to our fall down, to our senses being agitated. Idea is that, of course, in this life, perhaps we can be vigilant and we know what's going on, and we can try and, number one, stay away from situations where the senses can be agitated. Examples can be watching movies that can agitate our senses. Looking at some posters and things. Nowadays, we have so many things, blaring at us from all over glaring at us from everywhere. So, just keeping our sights away from those sort of agitating kind of images. Reading, not read stuff which can agitate your mind. Stuff like this. Sometimes one may be reading an innocent news story, for example, right? And then there could be some part in the story talking about a couple's relationship or something, and that could agitate our mind, right? So in this life, we just make sure that we stay away from all those stimulants. But as you mentioned, yes, from the previous life also, we might get some of these throwbacks, some thoughts coming through from in our mind. So even those, we need to make sure that we nip them in the bud and not let them foster.
Yes, thank you, Prabhuji. But from previous life, they would be very subtle, isn't it?
Yes,
we
exactly.
would not know those at all. We would not be aware of it.
Exactly, good point. When they remain subtle, they will not harm us. The danger is when those subtle thoughts, subtle impressions start to manifest them stronger. That's when you need to nip them in the bud. Definitely push them back.
Yes.
Just start chanting. The name of the Lord is very, very powerful. Pick up your beads and start chanting, and that will, throw everything away. And when you focus, when you're chanting, just pray to the holy name. That please, 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 I can feel some agitation coming to my mind. Please help me, my Lord. Oh, holy name, please help me to stop.
So nice. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Mataji.
Just one realization or just my thought on what you just said. And I think that was such a powerful message, because the mind does get agitated. But the fact that you said when it gets, just chant and pray to the holy name to help you, I think is a very powerful message for me, which will stay with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Krishna Mataji. Yes, absolutely. The holy name is our only savior.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Human life, this human life is very, very rare. And the human life is meant not for sense enjoyment, but for meditating and for searching for our spiritual life. Lord Rishabdev, when he is speaking to his 100 sons, instructing them, he speaks a verse which is how does it go? Nayam deho deha bhajamni loke kashtan kaman arhate vid bhujami tapo divyam putrakayena satvam sutyet yasmad brahma saukyam tvanantam. So he's saying that of all the living entities who have accepted material bodies, one who has been awarded this human life should not waste his life simply for sense gratification, which is available even to the dogs and hogs. So imagine these animals have much better facility for sense enjoyment than us. But we have been given the human life not to waste it like the dogs and hogs. So he says, Tapo divyam putraka yena satvam. The human body is there, tapo, for austerity, to search for austerity, to control our mind and senses, and to develop our spiritual life. And once we're successful, Srutyad Yasmad Brahma Saukham Tanantam, then we will actually enjoy a life which is eternal and transcendental to all material happiness. And not only that, he says, Brahma Saukham Twanantam, Twanantam, which is without end. So continues forever. That is the powerful message from Lord Rishabhdev. We try and enjoy the senses, but the temporary sense enjoyment we have, it is like chapalasuk, comes and goes. It does not stay. But here, from Rishabhdev's message, we can see that once we transcend that and get the real happiness, the spiritual happiness, there's Brahmasuk and Jarasuk. Jarasuk is all this, our attempt to enjoy material gross senses. But Brahmasuk is the transcendental sukh, which lasts forever. There's a message here from Jay Prabhu. If someone who has been meditating for thousands of years can fall down, how can we guarantee that we will not fall down? Very good point. Very good point, Jay Prabhu. But this is why these examples have been given to us by Srila Prabhupada, that yes, it is so dangerous that even somebody like that can fall down. So what to speak for of us, right? But that we should not take it negatively to say that, oh, I give up, because if Vishwamitra couldn't control himself, and if Sambhara Muni could not control himself, what is the chance of me? So I might as well just enjoy my life. No. We have to rely on our sadhana, and we have, as I was saying, pray. And if we do pray sincerely, the Lord will give us the strength to not fall down. We should always have faith that the Lord will save us. See, the situation can be also in both the cases for Saubhari Muni and for Vishwamitra Muni. Their meditation was not always. Meditation is not always for pure transcendence. Meditation could be to achieve some powers, extra powers. As we know, Vishwamitra Muni was really meditating, so he can have powers that Vashishta Muni had. So the motive was not completely pure. So that when the mind is impure, then you will fall down. Similarly, okay, with Saubhari Muni, I don't know the whole story, I'm not sure, but again, there could be some impurity which then triggers that downfall. But if our aim is pure, then the Lord will help us. I hope that helps, Jai Prabhu.
Prabhuji, I was just thinking, can I say one more thing?
Yes,
Sorry.
Yes,
Yeah, I was just thinking that if we live in that constant fear that any second could be our last breath on this earth, then to watch TV or to do things that are not appropriate, then we're just going to get trapped and come back again and to enjoy those desires. So that's the kind of constant fear one should live in.
Yes, one should live in that fear, but not just fear. Personally, I don't like to live by fear, and I don't think devotees should be fearful of anything. So I know what you mean. So I'm not trying to sort of argue with you, but I'm just thinking that perhaps not live by fear, but live with prayer. I'll give you an example. Prabhupada once in a lecture, I had some question and answer situation, and Prabhupada actually boldly stated that I will never fall down. And then the next day, Prabhupada was in front of the deities, and he was intently praying. So the couple of devotees who were with them at the time, when they were walking away from the temple room, one of them, it sort of generated enough courage to ask him. He said, Prabhupada, may I please ask you what you were praying for? And Prabhupada said, I was praying to the Lord to request him to make sure that I never fall down. So the devotee said, but yesterday in the class, you said that you will never fall down. He says, yes, because I'm praying like this to the Lord, so I'm sure that I will never fall down. Right? So rather than live by fear, I would say, turn it on his head and say, pray to the Lord every day, sincerely, and the Lord will make sure you don't fall down. Have faith. Hello, Mataji, does it make sense? Okay, Neela Mataji, your hands
Yes,
up.
thank you. Yes, thank you, Prabhuji. Yes. Yes, Prabhu. I think I didn't finish this. Yeah.
Hello, Prabhuji. It's Amit here actually.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, in the Shloka 50th, it was mentioned that a person engaged gets rid himself of both good and bad reaction in his life. Now, if you ignore these good and bad reactions, then, and are you saying that we ignore what's happening in the world and just keep our faith in Krishna? And if so, I mean, how do you then motivate yourself for doing your duties? For example, I mean, Arjuna did, he had to, stand up and fight for his rights. So I see it's kind of bit contradictory. At one point, we are saying we should get rid of these good and bad emotions, but without emotions, would we able to do our duties?
Very nice point, Prabhu. Prabhu, what's your name?
My name is Amit.
Amit Prabhu, nice question, very nice question. Let me explain how this works. So that verse 50 says, the man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad reactions, even in this life. So here the point is that we are ridding ourselves of the reactions of our work, not that we are not working. Even Arjuna, Krishna didn't say to him that you stop using it, sit by the side and I will fight for you, because you should not get involved in this bad fight. No, even Arjuna, Krishna said, you fight. So we have to do our duty, Amit Prabhu, with the right consciousness that, everything we do for Krishna. So once if we are doing anything for ourselves, then we're getting these reactions, good or bad. And neither we want. We don't want any even good reactions, because for good reactions, we'll have to come back to enjoy those results. And that, of course, we don't want. So we have to work in this life. Nobody can stay without working. So we do our duties, we do our work and everything, but with the consciousness of not the results for me, but with the consciousness of the fact that I'm doing this for Krishna. Everything that we do, we can keep Krishna in the center. Example, going shopping for food. Yes, I'm buying this, so I can make bhoga for Krishna. I can offer him. Going to work. Yes, I'm going to work so I can earn the money, so I can run my household. My house is a temple of Krishna. My family are devotees of Krishna. So by earning the money, I can feed my Krishna's devotees, right? So like this, every action you can dovetail to Krishna. Once you're doing that, then the reactions are not coming to you, right? Motivation will remain. Motivation, you still have to do your duties very diligently, as Arjun did his duty diligently. You're working, you work very hard, very diligently, but your consciousness is that I'm doing this for Krishna, right? That way we remain free from the reactions. Does that make sense, Amit Prabhu?
Yeah, it does, especially when you give the example, it really made sense. Sometimes the theory does not go into mind, but the examples do. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. B. Right,
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Just wanted to add to that. So it's not enough to control our actions all the time to maintain the equanimity, but we have to remain alert and watch our thoughts as well.
Exactly. Actions, of course, bad actions we will never do. Devotees will not do bad actions intentionally. But
Thinking is.
we need to control our thoughts, absolutely. You know, Dhyata Vishayan Pumsan. Sangas Deshu Pajayate. So just from those thoughts, everything starts from those thoughts, isn't it? So yes, we have to be vigilant all the time. Thank you. Thank you, Bhagavati Mataji. All right, it's getting to almost 10 to 8 to 9. So we'll stop here, devotees. Thank you so much. Please do look after yourself. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa
Kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhyaiva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
For the wonderful class.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.